Welcome, Peter. We're just going to mute everyone here as we let folks come on in. Thank you so much for joining us.
No worries, my pleasure.
Welcome, everyone. We're just going to get started in just a few minutes here.
Allô?
Murphy. Well, good morning, everyone. Hi there. My name is David Murphy with TechFire. We're going to get started. It's great to have you all here. I'd like to thank all of you for joining us, and I'd like to thank especially our wonderful speakers today. We have a great lineup, including, as you'll see, our very first speaker. I'll be kicking things off very shortly here. I'm going to keep my welcoming remarks very brief, but I just want to say thank you so much to the City of Burbank for hosting this series, as well as to our partner today, the Burbank Chamber of Commerce. We're so grateful to them as well. And, you know, we really hope, obviously, if you are a company, an entrepreneur already in Burbank, that you found these, you know, webinars to be helpful. If you have not viewed our webinars before, check out the city's website, burbankca.gov. Click on the COVID-19 resources section and look under the business resources section. You'll see links to view the past 4 webinars in the series. We've had some other fantastic speakers. And for everyone who did join us before, welcome back. Thank you so much. It's been great to be with all of you together virtually here. Wish we could all be together in person, but please know the reason the city is doing all of these is they want to support all of you. And so do we here at TechFire, and, you know, I know the chamber obviously as well. And just, you know, should say, if you are not already in Burbank and you're joining us from TechFire's broader mailing list, perhaps around the SoCal community, hope when things normalize here and you're thinking of expanding or moving, you keep in mind what city it was, what economic development team it was that really, you know, rolled out these resources for the community, and consider choosing Burbank as your next expansion point or great place to move to. So huge thanks to Mary, Marissa, and Melissa with the city's economic development team. Just had such you know, great experience collaborating on these webinars, and I hope they've been valuable to all of you attendees as well. And of course, thanks to the city's top leadership as well, the city council and the top staff. So without any further ado, I just want to say, you know, just as we've had to reimagine what we do with the Burbank Tech Talk series, you know, bring things online, and found it to be a wonderful, you know, enjoyable experience, certainly for us to do, and hopefully something that's helpful to all of you. Obviously, we know that every business out there has to retool, and some of us, you know, may have found a temporary means to try to hang on right now during the crisis. But what's the broader horizon? You know, do we really need to tear up our business plans and start from scratch, or can we make some minor tweaks to marketing and such and survive and thrive? These are the kind of thoughts which our speakers will help us explore, and we'll take the blinders off and try to, you know, try to face the hard realities of what the situation is here. I think, you know, I think it's especially tough. We're all locked at home, not getting out and getting as much perspective. It can be, you know, hard to face sometimes, you know, what the broader perspective is about one's business and the prospects here, given the incredible turmoil that the broader world is going through. So I want to just give you a quick rundown on the agenda. We have, as I said, 3 great speakers today. Our first speaker, I'll be turning things over to shortly, will be CSUN's own Compton Northridge's Dr. Franck Vigneron, who's director of the Wells Fargo Center for Small Business and Entrepreneurship and a professor of marketing. And he's a serial entrepreneur. He's got quite the interesting family business as well. I'll get into that in a moment. And then joining us from USC, Marshall School of Business, we're very grateful indeed to have Dr. Ann Myshaw. She is a professor of data sciences and operations, and she's the USC Associate's Chair in Business Administration. And then finally from SCORE, how many of you have participated in SCORE? I'd be curious. If you want to use the raise hand feature in Zoom, feel free. Or feel free to put it in the chat. I'll raise my hand literally here on the screen, so they have the screen, and say I benefited from them when I was just starting out in business. They're an incredible resource, partially funded by the Small Business Administration. So their resources are free. They provide free meetings, free mentoring, and these days free online webinars to help you, you know, not only with all the basic questions like I was asking when I started out as an entrepreneur, but these days with one-on-one mentoring to help folks get through. And I hear they're busier than ever. So check out score.org. It's an incredible resource, and we're just so grateful to have all of our speakers with us today. So I want to just say also, get your questions coming in. We'll have time for hopefully extended Q&A at the end here with everyone. There's a Q&A button. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you can click that. You can also put it in the chat, but if you use the Q&A feature, that lets other folks upvote your questions, so we get the most popular ones and try to get those first. So anyway, get those in as we go along, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end. So first up here, Dr. Frank Vigneron. I talked to my aunt who's French. I'm afraid my French is not as good, but she told me that's the perfect name for someone whose family is in the cognac business, as you are. That means vineyard owner. Is that right?
Yes.
So I love it. So I'm just going to give a quick taste here of your full bio, and then I want to turn things over to hear about that side of your background. But in addition to being the director of this wonderful resource, the Wells Fargo Center for Small Business and Entrepreneurship at CSUN, which provides consulting services we'll hear about for entrepreneurs. He is someone who is a serial entrepreneur, expert on luxury marketing and everything in between. And this isn't just any cognac business, Professor, is it? Maison Commandant goes back to the 1800s, I hear, and
Yes.
it's won top awards recently, so you're not resting your laurels at all. So I wish we had a live event here. We could all have a tasting, but instead we'll have to suffice with a tasting of your expertise and your thoughts on the topic of the day here. So I'll turn things over to you.
Can I share the screen as well, or?
Yes, absolutely. You have the privileges, so jump right in.
Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me. Let me give you a little background. I am originally from France. I left France in the early 90s. I went to Scotland to study marketing, and then I went to Australia to further study marketing. My interest during all of this time, since 1993, has been on luxury marketing. So I wrote a PhD on luxury marketing. Eventually, because I started such a long time ago, I got lucky because this subject of luxury marketing became a more prominent subject. And since I was among the earlier writer on the subject, I was sort of taken as a seminal researcher on the subject. So my research has won a number of publications on the subject, and I keep working on this. I published in mostly empirical peer-reviewed journal, so it's very intellectual review about what is luxury, but I've always liked to be in the business as well. So I was a consultant for Arthur Andersen, for PricewaterhouseCoopers. So I like the world of wearing several hats, which is one hat is to teach, one hat is to do research, another hat is to be a consultant. But my family are very entrepreneurial, and they own a business of cognac, which was founded in 1821. So I decided to help them on the side. As I decided to help them on the side, I wanted to be involved in the production as well. So I made some changes in the production, and eventually we won 3 times World Best Cognac in 2010, 2014, and 2016. So,
and it's available locally, right?
Yes, it's available in locally. Total Wine, I guess in your area, in Woodland Hills, there's a Woodland Hill Wine, Tarzana Wine and Spirits. So a lot of stores, but I don't want to go into the concept of selling liquor. It's very complicated because you need all kinds of licenses. I sell it to an importer that sells it to a distributor for California, and then they sell it to retail stores. But because it's not a mega brand, the distribution, when you are a family-owned brand, is very complicated. So I know all about the difficulty that everyone is going through right now, because it's a situation that's going to really help big business more than it's helping small business. Big business are suffering because they have to shrink dramatically, but at the end, too big to fail, they're going to have some help more than anyone else. And so the small businesses, they have to learn to survive. So that's what I'm doing. I have another liquor business that I founded with a very large producer in France as well. So that's a second business. And I also, with my family, own a Swiss watch company. So I'm helping them with this. What's good for me is it keeps me involved in consulting. And I love consulting, but I also do consulting at CSUN, so California State University Northridge, as a consulting, business consulting facility, which was created in 1976. And this facility is now called the Wells Fargo Center for Small Business and Entrepreneurship because it's endorsed and sponsored by Wells Fargo. What we do is we help local businesses, but they don't have to be local. We help all kinds of businesses get some services like you would from a consulting firm. So they come to us and they say, we have a problem. Or sometimes they think they have a problem on certain area, but at the end, they have problems in other areas. It's like going to your doctor and you think you have a back problem, but essentially you have a neck problem. And that's the origin of the problem. So we consult with family, local, large. We've helped businesses overseas, very large businesses overseas. A few years ago, I was helping a business in Europe that was making $13 billion. But I also helped the local pizza delivery. We've been very successful with all kinds of sizes. And also non-profit organization. What we do is we offer a huge menu of services, helping people with increasing their sales, increasing their social media, increasing understanding on how to get more funding, looking at operations, looking at human resources, financial, and also long-term strategy for the company. I have one success story, and we call it the $32 million handshake. Why do we call it like this? Because whenever we talk to businesses and we say, hey, do you want some help? I would say 95% of the businesses says, no, I don't have time. So now we ask them, do you have time to make $32 million? Why do we say that? Because most of the time people think that if someone is a student and is going to be working, we work for free to help them with their businesses, it's unlikely that we generate anything that is really valuable. So because of that problem, we are supposed to not generate anything valuable. They say, no, I don't have time. So thanks to that client that we've actually helped, in 2008, there was a crisis that we all know, and it was into the construction industry. His business went pretty much to bankruptcy. He came to us, and as he came to us, we decided to help him, giving him a new suggestion to improve his business. And he didn't follow it right away. He didn't, and he waited to be in even worse trouble. He went down to 2 employees and $400,000 sales. And then he eventually read the report, and doing it year after year, eventually he made a little bit over $32 million in 2019. So he came back to us and made a generous donation. So now we're using this story to explain to people that you can do well when you actually follow consulting help, even if this help was for free. So do you have time for this? No, most people say we have time. Last businesses that we help, I want you to see 3 examples. The Forbidden Band is a band that was created by Misha Siegel. If you look on the internet, Misha Siegel, you're going to find, I don't know, 500 videos, maybe more than that, of Misha Siegel, because he's a very famous composer from Israel that came in the United States 40 years ago. And he won Academy Award, Golden Globes, Grammys. He won so many different prizes for being best composer. He's got 200 movie soundtrack, and he wanted to create a music band. So he came to us and we helped him create the Forbidden Band, which is a music band that he's managing, and he's growing this business. Matus is, again, this is a coincidence. It was another music band that I worked on who won Best LA Young Band, and they got a $20,000 from CSUN as a scholarship to help them grow their band. And so I also teach MBA students I teach MBA students the standard, and I teach MBA students who are going to be working in the music entertainment industry. So this was a perfect client for them. And then we work for Lenny Ciceri, who is a startup that is working on selling stones for decoration, stones for meditation. And so I had 162 students work for our company in writing a report that highlights the different things that one can do. So in our situation, it was mostly looking at how to launch the business online and create an e-commerce platform. when I teach, and maybe I will go into my my personal opinion on what to do. I think the situation we are right now is a crash situation, economic crash situation. I think we'll follow some kind of recession, and so everyone has to sort of prepare for this recession. And my concept, because I teach marketing, entrepreneurship, small business, consulting and strategy, I call it Darwinership. So Darwinership is very much my state of mind, my philosophy of business, which is that you have to be constantly thinking about survival. Survival even when you are successful, because being successful puts you in a position where you may become too comfortable. So this survival is not just when there's a crisis. The survival is a continuous thing in good days and in bad days. And behind survival, what's important is adaptation.
And, you know, I just want to jump in. I got a question from someone right now asking for what the best action, basically the best actionable advice you'd have would be, given the reality we're in. How can folks survive in this
Exactly.
survival of the fittest?
So I prepared this slide to explain this. So this slide, I'll try to say it in 1 minute, 2 minutes maybe, is I believe that you need to put leadership and research at the forefront, which means that to survive is you're gonna have to do something that you didn't do before. A lot of people, I mean, it's kind of sad. With my cognac business, the most successful period within the past 12 years was February 2020. That was the best months of the past 12 years for me. Followed March and April and May, which are the worst months. So if I cannot be nostalgic, the first thing is nostalgia is not good. Thinking about the past is not good. It's thinking about what is coming in your way is very important. Take leadership, do research because you're gonna have to innovate. You're gonna have to change yourself, the way you think, and you're gonna have to seize opportunities. So opportunities are all of these things are changing in your environment, and you're gonna have to be ready to take advantage of opportunities, but you're gonna have to analyze your strengths and weaknesses in order to be able to take about these opportunities. You don't wanna be, when I say innovation, is you don't wanna reinvent something that is dramatic. You just wanna add a cherry on top, find some ways. You're just gonna have to find just noticeable differences. And then the last thing I wanna talk about is segmentation, targeting, and positioning. This is a concept that you can find on Wikipedia, that is explained in Wikipedia, but essentially the idea is that you need to understand your customers. 100 times I ask the question to clients, who are your customers? 100 times, I'm lucky if I get one person of 100 business people that are capable of telling me who are their customers. So that's the biggest problem I see in the industry. I've helped 400 businesses, about 400 businesses in the past 10 years. Of 400 businesses, I'm lucky if I have 5 that can give me an acceptable definition of who are their targets. People don't understand who are their targets. If you don't understand who you're trying to satisfy, you cannot be successful. People are still going to exist. People are still going to look for solutions. People still have needs that you need to satisfy. The problem is how good, how prepared are you to understand their needs? Who are you trying to satisfy? Are you doing a business for something that you want to do, or are you doing a business for someone that you're trying to satisfy? Who is it that you're trying to satisfy? Try to make sure you get closer, understand better than anyone else who you're trying to satisfy. That's the most important thing. So again, I'm just being honest. 400 is a big number of businesses. And I'm telling you, if I have 5, that's a good day. Most people don't. Like the typical answer is, who are your customers? Everybody is my customer. What do you mean? Well, man, woman, young, old, rich, poor, everyone can be my customer. But businesses cannot succeed unless they have a very detailed, precise understanding of who are their customers. People are not going to go away. People are going to change what they want, the way they want it. And it's very important that you understand who you can satisfy better and what do they want.
That's very helpful, Professor. I just wanted to ask you, you know, folks that you're talking to, you certainly mentioned your own experience with your own businesses, but are you hearing from a lot of folks that really just frankly need to face that they need to completely pivot in a new direction? I mean, you know, there are a lot of businesses which, you know, let's say, you know, whether you're in the live event space or you're, you know, maybe you're a boxing studio, you're, you know, something. You know, you have to just face that as hard as it is, you put so much blood, sweat, and tears into your business.
Of course.
Gotta kind of throw it out.
I'll give you I believe is a perfect example. this business that came in 2008 saying things are bad, big crisis, construction, we're going to close the door. They came to us and we told them, and that's like going to the doctor and they tell you, you want to be healthy, stop eating sugar, stop smoking and exercise. Most people, when they hear that, what do? They don't do that. They don't stop smoking, sugar and all this. So that's the big problem. You have to be ready to hear what you don't want to hear. That's the number one thing. So when they came, they were sort of ready, but they were not, because they actually waited 2 years to do what we told them to do. So when they came, they were selling marble. Now they are the biggest marble seller in Southern California, but they were selling marble to businesses. So they were importing marble from everywhere in the world, mostly South America, and selling it to a business for the business to take the marble and build a kitchen. And we told them this business is finished. These customers don't exist anymore. The hundreds and millions of dollars you made went down because that doesn't exist anymore. Now you're gonna have to make a store, open a store and sell directly to people. So you have a B2B, business to business. Now you have to go to B2C. I mean, when you say that to someone, that's a 360 pivot. It's a crazy pivot. It's a 90-degree angle. And they didn't do it right away because it's too much to hear and it was too true and too difficult. And it takes time also to do it. So you have to be ready to be in a position that you could be in a situation that you have to dramatically change. But you don't want to jump to conclusion. And so the things that is very important is to do research. And with data, you make decisions. You don't make emotional decisions. You first spend the time to collect the data and you don't procrastinate just collecting data and data and data and data for weeks. But you need to collect data to make better decisions. So data is important. Data is helpful for businesses. Data reduces risks. It doesn't cancel risks, it reduces risks. And learning how to collect data is a skill. So before you learn to be a business person, I think you should be learning how to manage data. And then maybe you learn to become a business person. I think being a business person is the hardest thing you can do. I have 2 kids. One is going to college and is going to UCLA. It's not that easy. It was a lot of work. Harder than this is being a business owner because you have to constantly be ready to pivot.
It's definitely good advice. It's hard to hear, but
hard to hear.
We do have to face that, the hard reality. Someone's asking, remind us what STP stands for on the slide there.
Oh, STP, so segmentation. Segmentation means dividing people into a specific group based on characteristics. So age, income, so you divide people because you want to see how different they are. Then targeting is selecting among those groups, which one are the most important and maybe starting to make combinations. The internet right now has a much more friendly word for STP. It's called persona development. So if you Google persona development, it's sort of STP. Well, it's mostly S and T, dividing, selecting, and then P is positioning. So positioning is what is the image, what is the identity, what is the meaning your company is going to have. And so normally you have to do it in this order. So that's also a very good question. Is 99% of the businesses, they do PST, which means they say, here's what I want to be. And then I'm going to go fish to find the people that want what I am. So that gives you 95% chance to fail. And that's why so many businesses do that. They create the company and then they pray for a customer. And that's not the way you do it. Is you look for the market, you find the customer, and then you adjust your company to who they are. You don't 100% adjust because you cannot make yourself something that you're not. So positioning, it has to be truly what you are, but truly for someone that you want to be. So that's why the correct order is PSTP. So you start with P, what do I want to be? But what does the market want? And then you adjust yourself to, then is my positioning. So if you look for PSTP, that doesn't exist on the internet. That's my own little making. But the S, segmentation, targeting, and positioning is a 101 concept in business, which I see very rarely in businesses. If you look for a successful business, they have STP. If you talk to a large corporation, Ford, they do STP every day. Small businesses don't do STP. And that's a bummer. And that's why there's, I believe, such a huge failure because they don't understand who is their customers.
That's why people need to come to you, Professor. And how can they do that if they
so
want to apply to be a...
Is my next slide. So it's very easy. Here's my email. I'm a professor. My specificity is marketing. My specificity is consulting and marketing. So my grand focus is luxury, but I consult for everyone, technology, services. I can say Northridge. If you put my name, Frank Vigneron, CSUN, you'll find me. Otherwise, here's my email. So you can send me an email and I'll be very happy to help you. Just so
Wonderful.
you know, that's also part of the situation right now. Survival of the fittest is normally I get one request a week. Now I'm getting dozen a day because people are looking for solutions. And I think getting help is a very good solution from people that, and again, we do this for free, but because we have so many clients, we look for clients that are excited because students are working on this. So if the students find an excited client that really mean to be helped, that's much easier. It's like a doctor looking for a patient that wants really to be helped. It makes it easier for the interaction between the doctor and the patient. It's the same for us.
Well, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. And
You're very welcome.
thank you so much for, sorry, we don't have more time here, but really grateful. And I'm sure everyone's joining me in applauding here, even though attendees can't. So really appreciate it. And we're going to turn things over next to our next speaker. I want to just reinforce, we just heard how, important it is to have data, as part of your decision-making process here. And the good news is our next speaker is indeed focused on that. She is a professor of data sciences and operations. And Dr. Ann Myshak is also the USC Associates Chaired Professor of Business Administration at USC Marshall. And she's actually going to be giving a talk to the USC Marshall and USC community in June on digital transformation of companies during the pandemic. And we asked her to jump in and give us a presentation here right up front. We're so grateful to you, Professor, for making the time. So I want to turn things over to you, and again, ask everyone to keep those questions coming in using the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen, and we'll get to everyone's questions at the end as well. So turning things over to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And you were talking about some actionable suggestions, and that's what I'll be focusing in on, the sort of the 5 steps. And so one of the things that we're quite aware of is what is the new normal we're going to be going back to. And as our mayor has said, is that do we really want to go back to the normal that we currently are living with, or is there a new normal that we might be considering? And so this requires that all businesses, whatever size they are, need to be thinking about how to be innovative and think of new ways to deliver services, new approaches. As the question from one of the attendees, like as a talent acquisition person, what can they do differently? How can they be innovative in offering their talent acquisition services? And so that's those are the kinds of questions that businesses are struggling with right now. Is all of this is around, was initiated by the COVID, but it is sort of some of the downstream effects. Is how do you capture ideas now that you have a reduced and also maybe a remote workforce? How do you deliver physical services when you're social distancing? How do you meet your customer desires? How do you continue to be agile and be able to turn on a dime? And so my interest has always been, can a crowd help answer these kinds of questions? And certainly going to SCORE or going to Frank's center is quite a valuable thing to do. And as you'll see, is they all talk about the importance of research, as Frank mentioned. And so my view is the crowd can help you with the research. So now, what do we mean by a crowd? Well, your crowd comes from a variety of potential places and potential pockets. And so you need to think very broadly about your crowd, instead of just thinking about it as the consumer, which is, your current people that are paying for your current product. And that's, of course, one part of your crowd, but there's a lot of other parts of your crowd that you need to think about. And so, for example, if you're a restaurant, a small restaurant, your crowd will include foodies, the passionate few. They may not be a crowd of current consumers, but they do care about what kinds of foods get offered in a restaurant. Or your crowd will include your immediate suppliers, but more importantly, your suppliers to your suppliers. They'll include discussion groups of people who are talking about foods in restaurants. There'll be other independent entrepreneurs that are thinking of new ways to service restaurants. There might be a fan club associated with, let's say, a competitor, and looking at those kinds of people. So the talent acquisition person in the audience who asked what they do, how they can restructure themselves, a crowd would include people like the people they have placed before, but also as well as their client base, but also other technology vendors like Workday who are getting into the talent acquisition world, all sorts of technology vendors like that are doing Tinder kinds of things, for talent acquisition. It would be applicants that have tried and that you haven't placed. It would include other people like any of the unemployed that you can envision that you might service in new ways, as well as the government and that sort of thing. So these are what we mean by, this is what is meant by the crowd. It's a very broad definition of the crowd, and that's why you can get some innovation from them, because it's such a diverse group. And the crowds can be also within your organization as well as outside, and they can help you set these new business strategies and help you execute on some of them. Now, largest companies have been using crowds for years in a variety of different ways, and these are just some of their logos. But they're not using them correctly for innovation purposes, and so that's the kind of the research that's ending up evolving that we now are more aware of. And so one of the reasons why they're not getting the kinds of innovations that they'd like to be able to get is because of the way they're using crowds today, which is mostly what they're doing is they're going and they're asking people to give them ideas, meaning give them ideas about how they could be served better. And that means that what you're getting are asking people to give considerable time outside of their interaction with you, having thought through issues, and you're expecting many people to provide you these kind of ideas. And we just know that this doesn't work. It doesn't give you ideas that you hadn't already thought about. And so the alternative to the typical is what's being called triggering, where what you're trying to do is trigger your crowds to be innovative, and you're asking them to trigger each other to be innovative. And so what you do is you create a challenge, an innovation challenge, and you'll see in one of the steps that there is a platform that I've been able to identify very cheaply that would help you with this innovative challenge. And then what you're doing is you're asking the crowd not just for their ideas, but much more importantly for things like examples, analogies, and conflicting objectives. And so, for example, in a restaurant, if they're figure out how do they serve in a new way for social distancing, they might want to, include in the crowd, let's say, mimics, people who are very good at mimicry, because that doesn't require necessarily the kind of verbal communication. And and the mimics may talk about, analogies or examples of how they entertain people when they're not able to communicate to them directly, and only through nonverbal means. And so the concept is that the crowd provides these kinds of examples and trade-offs or conflicting objectives, and then that stimulates more crowd members to come up with more ideas. And so this alternative, just to make sure that it really worked, is I ran an experiment of 20 crowd challenges with real companies, and over the course of a year and a half. And we registered, there were 1,700 people included across these 20 challenges, and 2,500 posts. And noticed that they were posting very little to the challenge. So this isn't the kind of challenge where you're spending a whole lot of time. And so since there's so little time devoted, it's much easier to get people to engage. And these were the kinds of questions that were asked in the various challenges. The average number of people in any one challenge was less than 50. And so these are small numbers of people that are involved, and in some there was only 30. And so this one on the upper left is how do we stay in business? And that some of you are thinking through that. Some of them are much bigger nonprofit types of questions, like how do we remove all pests from New Zealand? And that went out to the citizenry of New Zealand. Some of them are a little bit more specific kinds of questions you might ask, which is, what mobile technologies might you want to use? But others of them are again for nonprofits or profits. So these are the kinds of questions that we asked, not we asked, but the companies asked in this experiment. And what we found was the collaborative, or what we call triggering challenges were led to much more higher innovative ratings by the companies who were doing the challenges. So in other words, using this triggering approach is much better. So how do you achieve this triggering approach? And here are the 5 steps. So the first step is you define what your potential types of crowd members would be. The more diverse, the better. The second step is you identify the question to ask them. And again, I'll give you some advice on how to do that. The third is you get a link to a website. Typically, the websites for offering these innovation challenges are very, very expensive. And that's why I worked very hard to try and find a platform provider who would be able to offer a triggering type crowdsourcing challenge very cheaply. And then you find and invite the crowd, and I'll give you some advice on how to do that. And then finally, you make sure you respond to them. And so the first step then that we're focused on is how do you identify the types of the crowd? And so you basically go around this circle and you say, okay, I want a diversity of perspectives about that could be on the business. And I want people who are pretty passionate about the industry or the business or the service needs. So, for example, in a small, if you were a small restaurant, you would want to include cooks and the friends of cooks and other restaurants and foodie bloggers and frequent restaurant patrons and food growers. Now, your first question might be is why would another restaurant help in this? And it's because they also get good ideas from the process. And as we know, it's not the ideas that matter, it's how you implement them. So having competitors involved in the challenge is actually can be very helpful to you and helpful to them. So that's and you're asking again very little time, 1 or 2 posts. So this is not like you're asking them to take away from valuable time that they might have spent otherwise. So that's the first step. Is in an ideal world you would include people from. You'd think about the types, you'd relabel them around this circle so that they would be specific to your particular organization. And then you'd be thinking about them when you move on to the next step, which is the questions that you would ask of them. Again, you don't need to yet at this point know exactly who these people are. You just need to think about the types of people. And so then the questions you would ask it has to be a question that requires multiple perspectives and creativity with no obvious answer. So you can't ask them a question like, what should I name my business? because what it turns out is the crowd tends to be very, the crowd meaning the public tends to not like those kinds of questions. And so what they'll do is they'll give you very, they'll be bringing you the bottom of the barrel, meaning very lousy kinds of ideas and ideas that sometimes are in fact quite negative. So you don't want to ask them questions that don't involve multiple perspectives and creativity. So you want to make sure you do get these kinds of questions going on in your mind. And so these would be the examples of questions that, again, a small business might offer, or a larger business is richer experiences or information we could add to our products, or how to think about food service in a new way. Now now that you have a question, and now that you have the kind of the type of the crowd, is you just go to the web, to a website link that I offer to you, and then you simply take about an hour at the most. It would take an hour to edit the challenge so that the question is for your organization. So here is a question I put up on this website. It's, as a medium-sized real estate firm, how do we provide value to our customers? So that would be a question that I had generated for my real estate firm, if I had a real estate firm. So so you would just learn during this 1 hour session that's again offered for virtually nothing by this organization Innovation Cast, to edit you would edit the website and specify your question. And this website has been explicitly constructed for triggering the crowd. It is the only website in the world today that is structured specifically for crowdsourcing, that's focused on triggering. All the rest are focused on the typical way, which is idea generation. So don't think that you can use any other platform, because I've spent a lot of time looking at all the other technologies and they just do it wrong, and so you won't get the results that you want. So then your step
Professor,
4.
this is very helpful. We're running short on time, unfortunately.
Oh, okay, so we're almost through the 4 steps, but should I stop?
No, please. This is very helpful.
Okay, so then step 4 is you find and invite the crowd. So now where do you find the crowd? Is you go with, you just go to Google and you start typing. Like here, I typed real estate, people interested in real estate. And then I found these blogs, and then I found these forums. And then what you do is you would advertise the link on these blogs and forums. You usually have to ask the blog administrator if you can put it on, but sometimes you don't have to. And remember, you only need 50 to 100 people. The challenges are running from between 7 and 10 days, so you don't, so it's not a whole lot of time. And then finally, step 5 is you need to respond to the crowd, and that's a really important step. And you want to respond quickly, and you basically tell them. You don't tell them exactly which idea and how you're going to implement it, because that's your strategic advantage. What you tell them are the kinds of things that I've got up here. And so in sum, the pandemic creates a need for businesses. So please consider letting the crowd help you, because I do believe that they can offer you some guidance. And so I'm here to help for free if there's any interest in following up on this approach. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Marchant. That was awesome. Really appreciate it. And clearly a data-driven approach here is what we need to make the data better for all of us and the metrics for all of our businesses. So super helpful, really grateful. And I feel like I'm ready to re-enroll in college, business school, between the two of you professors already. This has been great. Wish we had more time, but we'll get into things a little more in the Q&A here. Really want to thank you so much. So want to turn things over. We've heard a couple of our speakers make mention of SCORE, and indeed we have with us SCORE mentor himself, Peter Riley. Peter, we're so grateful to you for joining us on short notice. You're heroic, and just wanted to give a quick shout out. Mary Hamzonian from the City of Burbank wanted me to mention actually that the city has a partnership with SCORE, and you can sign up. I'm going to put the link here in the chat. If you visit the city's economic development website, econdevburbank.com/entrepreneurs, you can sign up for a one-on-one these days, virtually or by phone, appointment with a SCORE mentor for free, of course. So super grateful to have that resource available, and grateful, Peter, to you for joining us. Just want to kind of ask you, your background, you yourself, obviously just like all SCORE mentors, come from the business world and have presumably hard-learned lessons that you share typically with folks. But in these trying times, what are some of the top pieces of advice, specifically on dealing with the pandemic, actionable, advice you've been sharing with your mentees?
Great. Thank you, David, for having me today. And thank you, Frank and Ann, for some great ideas and great talks. First of all, let me share a little tidbit with you on what SCORE is. And hopefully you can all see that on your screen now, or you will in a moment. So my name is Pete Riley, and I'm a SCORE mentor and customer service manager. SCORE has actually been around for over 50 years. We're a nonprofit affiliate of the Small Business Administration. There are over 10,000 of us nationwide in approximately 300 chapters. And I'm part of the Orange County chapter, and we have about 100 volunteer retired business executives in the chapter that do the various things that we do. SCORE's charter is to provide information, perspective, and education to small businesses. And we do that regularly as a matter of course. I won't bore you by reading out some of the statistics here, but I will call your attention to the items I've put here on red, because you can call us at 714-550-7369 or email us at csmanager@scorevolunteer.org, or take a look at our website at orangecounty.score.org, or the national website at www.score.org. And there's just a ton of resources there that I would recommend you take a look at, and they're all free. There's no charge for any of that. So having said that, let me go ahead and move along to a list of things. I'm just going to go through this, and then I'm going to share some information with you that might be informative. What we're seeing people ask today is has to do with the programs that are available from the SBA and other sources to help you through this crisis, how you get them, what do you qualify for, how much assistance can you qualify for, how do you apply, when would you get the assistance. And now we're seeing, since these programs have been available for a while, now we're seeing the questions that have to deal with how do I get forgiveness for all or part of these loans? When do I have to pay it back if I don't get forgiven for it? And with all the reopening going on now and over the next 2 months, what will my business have to look like in the future? How do I reopen my business safely and also legally? And that's kind of an interesting part to all this. How do I get the word out? How long will it take? And to go through some of those things, there are some really great resources, in addition to SCORE, of course, that you can avail yourself of. And I'm going to just run through these really briefly. These are websites that you can go to and get a ton of valuable information. You can see the website address right here in the address part of the browser. And the first one, of course, is the SBA. They have a ton of information on their website. They've really responded in yeoman fashion to all this. And this particular Relief Options website goes through the different kinds of assistance you can get. And this is a combination of loans, basically grants and loans that are forgivable, that will let you get money basically to help you tide yourself through this and go forward. They also have a great page because, as may have been mentioned before, we're trying to do this, all of us, very quickly, on the fly sometimes, and even these programs are constantly in flux, constantly changing. The latest change coming up, in addition to a new bill, the HEROES bill, that has been approved by Congress and now is sitting in the Senate. In addition to that, the forgiveness provisions of the CARES Act are being looked at again with an eye towards extending and expanding those. We should hear more about that in the next week or so. And this page that you can go to, hopefully you're all seeing this, in the SBA site, talks about all of these kinds of things. One of the interesting things that came up in the Payroll Protection Plan, or PPP loan program, was that many banks were requiring that you had to have an existing account to get a loan from them. And these loans come through banks, not directly through the SBA. And not all banks were extending those loans. And so the SBA has put a PDF up here, and they try to keep it current as to what bank you need to go to in order to actually get something.
That's super helpful, Peter. And I want to turn people to our recordings of our past webinars on PPP as well. Of course, everything is constantly changing. But since we're short on time here, I want to make sure we get to your other thoughts too, just about sort of the business strategy side of things, you know, and how you're helping your mentorees, you know, face, you know, it can be an emotional thing to face that your business plan may need to be torn up and thrown out. So I want to make sure we have time for that.
No worries. So I'll jump right to that. And there are a number of websites that will give you a lot of really, really actionable information on how to reopen your business. This happens to be a good one. It's actually from a medical organization, but it has a ton of business advice. They even put a sample poster and a sample questionnaire. You can ask people if they're physically entering your location to screen out people who might be a risk. There's another one that Johns Hopkins has put out. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about briefly that SCORE has one of these for both for-profit and nonprofit businesses that you can take a look at. This Future Workplace actually has a ton of information that will address the legally kind of aspect to reopening. What sorts of things do you have to focus on and be aware of to make sure that you're complying with the laws and regulations in your state, city, town when you reopen? We've got state resources like the Employment Development Department that has this site that gives you links to all the resources that might be helpful. Another great one is the Labor Workforce Development Agency, which not only has links to all these areas that you might find interesting and valuable information in, they've got a great chart that shows for you and your employees what these programs might mean to you, what you might qualify for. And we also have an IRS chart jumping in here with the various types of relief that you may be able to get on your taxes, your payroll deductions that you turn in frequently. Some of that's being abated. They have an abatement program in case you don't qualify for the PPP loans. You might get some payroll assistance here in terms of a grant and credits for family leave and other issues. And I'd be remiss if I didn't point your attention to the SCORE website. And there was a comment made previously on webinars and interesting, kinds of features. And this is just an example of some of the workshops that are being offered now by our chapter of SCORE in the areas of business. And we have a heavy focus now on using the internet, using social media, using your website in order to capture those things that you need to capture to go on and be successful in your business. Because remember, you may be looking at changing things that you do, changing things around. You want to communicate effectively with the people that will be your customers, your supply line, and everything else. And one last point, if you would like a list of the links to all these websites that I've so briefly gone through, if you send something to csmanager@scorevolunteer.org, I'd be glad to send you a return email, and you can take a look at these things in more leisure. So thank you so much for having me, and I appreciate your time.
Peter, we're so grateful to you. SCORE is just an amazing resource, and you, like all of your colleagues, are volunteers doing this out of the kindness of your heart. It means so much, I know, to everyone. You know, I was just listening to a podcast where someone said they sold their $250 million popcorn business, Angie's Popcorn, having gotten advice from SCORE along the way. So really, if you want actionable advice, connect with the SCORE mentor is the top takeaway, I think, today. Again, Mary and Melissa from the city's economic development team are standing by to help connect you with someone. Visit the econdevburbank.com site, and they have a special partnership with the local SCORE team. So I'm so grateful. Thank you, Peter, and so grateful to all of our panelists. And you know, I just want to ask all of you, since I know we've had so much great expertise on the line here, haven't been able to have the chance for everyone to share what they wanted to, perhaps, given the shortness of time. Is there anything else burning in your mind that you want to send folks away with here, you know, in terms of top actionable advice? And anyone, feel free to jump in.
I would say communicate. That's going to be key. Outbound communications, but also incoming communications. You need to be talking to the people that you bought product from, or you just need to be talking to everybody.
So be like the cat and speak up.
Yeah.
That sounds good. Go ahead.
So I think it's a very difficult situation, but it's part of being in business. Is you sign up for this essentially, and therefore business is always difficult, and this requires to be prepared and want to do the extra mile. And to do the extra mile is you have to be ready to satisfy someone, and to satisfy someone you have to better understand. I work with the people of SCORE in the class. They come, they are just amazing because they have so much knowledge and resources. And so they come to the student presentation and they have very practical ideas. And that's what's very important right now. But right now, as a business person, is the fear and panic needs to be controlled by doing some research and finding solutions. So I think I went on the SCORE website. It is very good, and they give you a lot of ideas. You need to do this with your customers. You need to do this with your customer. But nowhere, and this is always the problem, someone sent me a private link through LinkedIn, and I was discussing with them, is you have to make the effort of knowing your customers, having a very good definition of who is your customer. And that's what I was privately discussing with this person. He said, yes, I got it. But people don't understand the importance of the closeness with the customers. Communicating a lot is very good, but it's communicating to, again, understand your customers. I really like what Anne offered, this graph with all around the circle and all these different people that you need to communicate. Again, I think you need to communicate to them for the sake of understanding who's your customer and what your customer is thinking and which direction they're going. And I say this all the time, if I have 5% of the people that understand me, that's a lot.
And you can't expect that your customer is still around given the economic realities, or they will be, right?
Well, they've changed. They may have gone to your competitors. They may have a sensitivity to pricing that makes it that you're not the thing. Like my cognac was doing very well in February because people thought that they had money. My cognac is more expensive. It's a limited edition. Are people still drinking cognac right now? They are, but they went to the big box brand that is mass produced. And so therefore, this is going to help the big box brand. And so what do I do as a small company now? that are more expensive. Do I change market? Yeah, maybe that's what I do. So right now I'm working on selling cognac, not so much in America, is I'm working in China because the economy is going back in China. I'm looking at new markets. And so that's what you have to do, is you have to keep chasing that customer. You have to keep understanding who they are.
We've got a question or a comment from someone. Maybe feel free, anyone who wants to respond. They say, anonymous attendee, I know the customer and they are not buying for now or in the long term. So, you know, you need to face the fact things are looking bad. What should folks do?
Well, that's my view, is that if you focus on the customer, you're not going to get the innovation. And that's why you need to be focused on these other things and these other people, or these other groups of people around this little circle. And I think that while we would ideally like to have a lot of time to interact with each of these individual types all the time, we just don't have it. And that's why I think the kind of the crowdsourcing approach is more effective, because then it's not the case that you personally have to interact with each of these people, and because that just takes up too much time.
You know, we are keeping an eye on the data here at the time, which is telling us we're running out of time. But I want to ask, can we send out those wonderful slides that all of you had, or any links that you'd like? All of you, feel free to email them to me, and I will send them out to everyone. We're also recording this so folks can rewatch too. I know it will be linked tomorrow as well. Marissa's telling us too from the city's website. Please, everyone, check that out, burbankca.gov. You can also view the past recordings there as well. We've had you know, members of Congress, SBA reps, past speakers, and really hope these programs have been helpful for all of you. We're rooting for you, everyone. You know, we want to see the business community thrive. We know it's really hard, both professionally and personally. And again, I may be on the screen here, but if you find these programs helpful, it's the City of Burbank that's putting them on. Mary, Marissa, Melissa, Simone, Patrick, the entire team, the council there, I want to thank them. And thank, of course, all of our wonderful speakers. I just wish we had more time, but I just really can't thank all of you for joining us. And I know I'm applauding on behalf of everyone who can't do it because we're virtual, but really, again, deepest thanks to all of you. And with that, I want to let everyone go because you may have another webinar you have to jump on here. But indeed, thank you so much, and best wishes to everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Good luck.